George Buck is dead. That's what he said. Don't you put no shortening in my bread. George Buck is dead. That's what he said. Don't you put no shortening in my bread.
This is part 5 of the radio adaptation of A Great American Tapestry, a 5-part audio documentary based on the film of the same name. I'm David Weintraub, the director and producer. This program is a production of the Center for Cultural Preservation, based in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and WNCW Radio. It's based on the film A Great American Tapestry, The Many Strands of Mountain Music, which is currently touring the region and is available on DVD with more information at saveculture.org. The film was made possible in part by Paul and Simone Shoemaker, Carola and Stuart Cohn, the Perry and Rudnick Endowment Fund, Jim and Barbara Neal, Helen Bishop, and Adept Word Management. Over the previous 4 shows, we've discussed the multifaceted tapestry that is mountain music. But why are the connecting strands of this musical fabric so important to remember? What do we lose when this textured history fades away behind a polyester curtain? Starting us off today is author and professor of Appalachian history, Phil Jameson.
The music and culture of Appalachia represents America. And it is a melting pot. It's not just transplanted British Isles culture, but it has Native American and African American and French and German and English and Scottish, all in the mix and more. It is a culture that developed here that is distinctly American. You can't say that it's African, you can't say that it's English, you can't say that it's Scottish. It's none of those things, but it's truly American.
We continue with Grammy Award-winning banjo player, Dom Flemons.
When young people don't know the history, or they're not being shown or presented the entire picture or the entire spectrum, it gives them a skewed view on life. And it leads them to get impressions of certain things that might not be fully correct.
Justin Robinson, roots musician and co-founder of the Chocolate Drops, with Dom, continues.
The breadth of history, first of all, is long and wide. Now, folks of colors, and I'll speak specifically of black folks in this moment, and even to take that one step further and say folks who were brought here to be enslaved, their contributions were many and varied and are splattered all over what we now know as America. That is also true for indigenous folks. And what we need is counter-narratives. And history is sometimes a counter-narrative, but it's not always the most convincing one. But it gives you a place to hang your hat, hitch your wagon to get started, I would say. To be able to have some alternative facts, if you will.
Ted Olson, Appalachian music professor at East Tennessee State University, picks it up from there.
I think the danger of people, shall we say, whitewashing Appalachian music history, not really understanding the true cultural diversity of the music making throughout history. The fact that the banjo comes from African origination, the fact that the mandolin comes from Italian origination, that the guitar comes from Spanish origination, as some examples. The dulcimer, the Appalachian dulcimer comes from German origination, most likely. If people forget these matters, and if people think of Appalachian music as just embodying one ethnic contribution, the mistake that Cecil Sharp made, frankly, it grossly simplifies the story of Appalachian music, and in the process it simplifies in a very kind of unfair and in some ways very damaging way the full story of Appalachian cultural history in its totality. The true story of Appalachia is a story of diversity, and that diversity brings strength.
Rhiannon Giddens, crossover musician and the final founding member of the Chocolate Drops team, wraps up things for us right here.
It's important to remember everything that goes into the tapestry of, American music, whether it's Appalachian music or, Piedmont music or whatever. It's important to remember all of the strands, because that's the truth. And the truth is always much more interesting than the fiction that is being fed to us, And the truth is what informs who we are and explains why we do what we do. The truth does that. Illusions don't do that. Illusions obfuscate. You know, they're feeding, if there's an illusion that's being sold, it's because somebody is selling it, and why are they selling it? You know what I mean? Anything that goes into keeping us apart, anything that goes into us not understanding each other is going into the ruling class and their desire to keep us all separated so they can continue making money and having all the power. That's it. I mean, even this kind of, you know, people might think, oh, this is a very specific, it's all part of the game, you know? So, because music is supposed to be able to bring us together. And that's what it has done over and over and over again. It's like you have nothing else in common, but you can meet musically. People, you know, are making music together, even if they're not, their daughters aren't talking, or even if they, you know, can't speak in public, they can make music, you know? And anything that's going to take that away, I think should be looked at in a very shady manner, you know, because that's the experiment that is America. That is why it succeeded, is because of all of those colors, not just the one, but all of them.
Everybody talking about the sweet nowadays. I got the one with the sweetest ways.
When we lose our history, we lose who we are, because everything that's gone up into this moment has made our culture the way it is. So if we don't understand that, A, we're going to keep making the same stupid mistakes, and B, we have lost the core of what it means to be American. You know, and you see it happening now. People forcing these narratives down these undereducated people's throats, and I include myself in that. I mean, I didn't know about the banjo until I was an adult. I'm always wary. It's knowledge is power, and knowing that we're more alike than different is powerful, and that's why they don't want us to know that. Not admitting that America is the sum of all of its parts. You know, all of the different cultures that came in and did this thing. There's a reason why the world loves American music, is because everybody sees a piece of themselves in it. Georgia Buck's dead. Last word he said, don't you put no shortening in my bread. Don't you put no shortening in my bread now, now. Don't put no shortening in my bread.
For WNCW, I'm Kim Clark, and we've just listened to this entire week of this wonderful radio adaptation of David Weintraub's film, An American Tapestry. And David is here with me now. First of all, David, thank you for all the work that you've done in this radio adaptation. I can tell you really put a lot of time into it. It came out great. And I got to tell you, you are a very good narrator.
Well, you know, my wife put me up to this. I would not have done it on my own. I would have hired somebody or had you do it, because I think you do a much better job. But you know, it's nice. It's nice to be able to express ownership about something that's been 6 years in the making. So yeah.
So 6 years—that's a long time to work on something. So why were you inspired to go down this path?
Well, I've loved mountain music long before I knew it was mountain music. You know, my mom was an old hootenanny performer way back when. And, you know, she'd perform, you know, in shows and on the radio sometimes. And it was striking to me that coming here to the mountains, that she was singing some of the old ballads songs, you know, in a Brooklyn Jewish family, you know, no less. And so that was kind of interesting. And, you know, I love Jerry Garcia and, you know, his solo stuff. A lot of it is these traditional songs. And so I came upon all of this stuff in a non-traditional, you know, traditional music in a non-traditional way, which I assume a lot of people come across it that way. But I always kind of thought, I remember when "Oh Brother Art Thou" came out, and I always kind of felt, to me, that was the compendium to Fiddler on the Roof. You know, Fiddler on the Roof was the schmaltzy film about Jewish culture in Eastern Europe and how things were changing radically. And I always kind of thought Brother Art Thou was like that too. But I love the music. I love, I learned piano to play some of the songs in Fiddler on the Roof, and I just loved the songs there. And that just kind of set me in listening to the music. And even long before I moved here, I was listening to WNCW and learning, some of the traditional ballad songs, learning the old time music, the bluegrass music. And so I wanted, where this history came from. And that kind of set me off. The problem was that I had a completely different notion of that history than the reality. And that set me for a shock because my budget was set in stone. The time frame in which I had to finish the movie was set in stone. It was going to be about the ballad tradition and how that influenced old-time music and bluegrass music. And that's the story I've always heard was it was all about the Scots-Irish. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Scots-Irish play an incredible role, and Scots-Irish music is so important. But it's not the only role. It's not the only influence. And that, to me, made the film so much more powerful, but it also was a shock to my system because I had to pick up lost time with 3 months to go to finish the film.
So you basically found out that your film was going to be something totally different than what you expected it to be.
Yeah, well, that to me is the beauty of filmmaking, and also the horror and fear of filmmaking, is that the film taps you on the shoulder at some point and says, you know what, this is what I am. And so when I started listening to the film, I think it became a better film, but it became the true story, the story that most people don't hear. Because lying in plain sight, when you hear this old-time concert with bluegrass musicians on stage, lying in plain sight when they're talking about this long, old Scots-Irish tradition is the banjo, right? Mm-hmm. And, that every once in a while someone will mention, well, that comes from Africa. But they never talk about the Africans who played the instrument, nor the African Americans who played the instrument. And so I think when you find out the whole story, it gives you greater respect for the music, but it also gives you greater respect for the whole community, not just a part of it.
Well said. And I want to congratulate you because you can now say that this film is an award winner.
Yes, we just won Best Documentary at the Triad International Film Festival, and the film is just launching its film festival circuit, so hopefully there'll be many more to come.
Yes. Well, congratulations, David, and thank you again for a great radio program. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
More information about David Weintraub's film, A Great American Tapestry, The Many Strands of Mountain Music, including upcoming screenings and details about purchasing a DVD, is at saveculture.org.